Buenos días a todos. Me presento, soy Alejandra Cabrera, directora ejecutiva de SUME Sustentabilidad para México. Me da mucho gusto poder hoy tener el gusto de compartir nuevamente con el GBCI, con nuestros grandes amigos, otro evento exitoso, nuestro LEED Innovators titulado The Challenge of LEED Zero. Entonces, les agradezco a todos su puntualidad, su asistencia y le doy la palabra a Nicolette Müller. Adelante, Niki, por favor.
Perdón, Ale. Antes de Niki, si me permiten, voy a hablar yo brevemente. Mi nombre es Rebeca Ortiz, soy la líder de desarrollo de negocios del GBCI en México. Y estoy muy agradecida a todos ustedes esta mañana por conectarse a nuestro evento LEED Innovators, The Challenge of LEED Zero. Quiero agradecer a Ale Cabrera, directora ejecutiva de SUME, a la mesa directiva, a nuestros invitados y a todos ustedes por acompañarnos. El día de hoy tenemos un panel de lujo para platicar sobre LEED Zero, los retos que conlleva y la posibilidad de implementarlo en México y en otros países de Latinoamérica. Antes de entrar en materia, les recuerdo que en todo momento pueden utilizar la función de chat para hacer sus preguntas, que serán respondidas al final del evento. Y a los profesionales LEED, también les comento que este webinar les da una hora para sus horas de educación continua. Van a poder ver el número de curso al final del evento. En los últimos tiempos, la palabra descarbonización ha estado muy presente en las conversaciones de todos los sectores productivos del país. La descarbonización es el proceso para lograr reducir las emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero en nuestras actividades. Cuando una entidad comienza su descarbonización, lo que está haciendo es implementar un plan de acción con medidas específicas para reducir las emisiones. En el caso de los edificios, con un proceso de descarbonización estamos dando pasos más allá de la certificación LEED. La misión del USGBC es la de transformar la manera en que los edificios y las comunidades están diseñadas, construidas y operadas. Y a través de LEED Zero creemos que podemos aumentar la urgencia del entorno construido para abordar el cambio climático, verificando la operación de los edificios para hacer de ellos entidades que aporten siendo regeneradoras de los recursos que normalmente consumimos. Hoy es un gran honor para mí presentarles a una figura muy importante en el movimiento de construcción sostenible. Para platicarnos sobre LEED Zero, el ingeniero Ulises Treviño. Ulises se define como un perseverante y apasionado promotor de la edificación sustentable en México y América Latina. Es fundador y director general de Bioconstrucción y Energía Alternativa, empresa pionera de consultoría en edificación sustentable y certificación LEED. Ha sido conferencista magistral en múltiples congresos en América, Europa y Asia. Se graduó con honores en Ingeniería Civil del TEC de Monterrey y cuenta con una maestría en Ingeniería Estructural y Gestión de la Construcción por la Universidad de Newcastle, en Inglaterra. Se ha desempeñado profesionalmente en Grupo Vitro, así como en la Dirección de Construcción de Obras del Metro y el Instituto Noruego de la Investigación para la Construcción. En 2003, Ulises tiene el honor de fundar el Mexico Green Building Council. Durante 7 años sirvió en el Consejo Directivo del World Green Building Council, ocupando cargos de secretario general y tesorero. Apoyó la formación de Green Building Councils en la región Centro y Sudamérica. Ulises es el primer profesionista hispanoamericano en recibir del USGBC la acreditación profesional LEED AP y la prestigiosa designación LEED Fellow. Ha liderado los primeros proyectos certificados LEED Gold y LEED Platino en Latinoamérica. En el año 2018 recibe por parte del USGBC el primer galardón Green Leadership Award en México. En 2019 fue nombrado académico honorario por la Academia Nacional de Arquitectura por sus contribuciones al fomento y creación de espacios sustentables en el país. El ingeniero Treviño ha participado también en el LEED Advisory Committee del USGBC. Ulises se desempeña como colaborador editorial en diversas revistas y publicaciones especializadas y es consejero honorario de Sustentabilidad para México. Ulises, es muy grato tenerte esta mañana.
Rebe, muchísimas gracias. Qué honor, al contrario, un orgullo y un placer estar con todos ustedes hoy. Muy buen día.
Y bueno, Ulises nos va a hacer la presentación principal de nuestro programa. Adelante, Ulises, por favor.
Muchas gracias. Muy bien. Pues les agradezco muchísimo esta oportunidad de presentar de una manera muy ágil y breve los fundamentos de este gran programa que es LEED Zero. ¿Y para qué responde este concepto de buscar una neutralidad en carbono, en aguas o residuos? Al mandato que tiene el US Green Building Council de crear mejores edificios, convencidos que nos lleva a mejores vidas, a mejor calidad de vida. Ese es el fundamento, esa es la sustancia del por qué la continua evolución dentro de un sistema de evaluación de edificaciones sostenibles, en este caso, la certificación LEED. Emma Hughes, ella está para responder a muchas de las dudas que puedan quedar. Les pasaremos ahora los datos, pero ella es la directora del programa LEED Zero en el US Green Building Council. Una gran chica, por cierto. Bien, como les mencionaba, el compromiso y el efecto de crear un ambiente construido más responsable con el entorno y que favorezca una calidad de vida superior es la meta última de organizaciones como el US Green Building Council. Y a través de LEED, que como sabemos es el sistema de certificación de edificios sostenibles más reconocido a nivel global, de mayor aceptación, ahora da un paso más adelante. Y debemos de estar muy claros que el concepto de carbono, el concepto de huella ambiental ha estado siempre embebido en el programa de certificación LEED. ¿Qué es lo que ahora se busca? Estar en consistencia con un lenguaje y una meta de organismos igualmente influyentes que están marcando esta pauta y este compromiso de detener los efectos del cambio climático. Y la contribución de LEED y esta respuesta es en este proceso de transformación de mercado. Nosotros sabemos que el sistema de certificación LEED consistentemente tiene actualizaciones y mejoras. Y este proyecto que certificamos hoy a un nivel platino es naturalmente de mucho mayor desempeño que uno similar certificado de hace 5 o 10 años, por esta naturaleza evolutiva de la certificación LEED. Y ahora el paso es hacia cero, lo que llamamos el poder de cero. LEED cero carbono, LEED cero energía, LEED cero agua y LEED cero residuos. Entonces, esta combinación de exigencias están ahora muy bien definidas y son objeto de una revisión de tercera parte que se realiza precisamente a través del Green Business Certification Institute. Y se desarrollan criterios y métricas específicas para medir ese efecto cero en estos 4 grandes ámbitos: carbono, energía, agua y residuos. ¿A través de qué? De una plataforma de medición, de evaluación que se llama ARC. Este es un sistema muy amigable, disponible en línea para todos los proyectos que se registran y buscan esta certificación. Y es donde podemos ir midiendo y guardando los registros del desempeño en estos renglones en el paso del tiempo. Y lo que buscamos finalmente es optimizar el desempeño de los edificios en estos temas y lograr un balance cero o positivo, sobre todo considerando los últimos 12 meses de operación. El enfoque es la etapa operativa, pero naturalmente nuestra gran oportunidad está en que los nuevos proyectos puedan reconvertirse, puedan reorientarse hacia estos objetivos y los edificios existentes realicen las mejores o las adecuaciones correspondientes. Es por eso que el LEED Zero es una extensión de los sistemas de calificación de Building Design and Construction y Operation and Maintenance, los sistemas, las familias de los sistemas de certificación LEED principales que hablan de edificios nuevos y edificios existentes. Y esta combinación es lo que vemos como el camino hacia el éxito, hacia la condición de edificios verdaderamente neutrales en emisiones y consumo de recursos. ¿Cómo se da esta sinergia? Sabemos, por ejemplo, que la versión actual de LEED para los edificios nuevos nos habla sobre desempeño avanzado de energía y ya nos encamina hacia este objetivo de cero neta energía por los estándares referenciados, por la inclusión de energías renovables en sitio y fuera de sitio, por estrategias de armonización de redes. Por su parte, todo el stock construido que puede manejarse a través de la certificación O+M, operaciones y mantenimiento, el enfoque es ya en el desempeño del rendimiento. Lo que buscamos es el análisis de carbono para todos los edificios, precisamente como mencionaba, a través de esta plataforma ARC. Tenemos puntuación disponible sobre los consumos de energía y métricas específicas y elementos de conversión para que el rendimiento y el desempeño del edificio pueda calcularse en gases de efecto invernadero, específicamente CO2 equivalente. Es así entonces como lo que habremos de buscar como concepto, y este es el mensaje principal que quiero compartirles, es conocer las ecuaciones básicas para lograr un balance cero. En el caso de energía, hablamos de un balance desde las fuentes de energía, que me parece realmente un elemento muy notable y distintivo de la propuesta de LEED. Está hablando de energía total entregada, ahora lo vamos a ver rápidamente, restándole la energía no renovable desplazada. Es decir, no es una sumatoria tan directa o simple como decir la energía consumida menos la energía in situ. Habla de las fuentes de energía. Y creo que esa es la gran diferenciación y una propuesta muy innovadora de parte del US Green Building Council, que busca ver el panorama completo, no únicamente lo que sucede en el edificio, sino las fuentes, el origen de la energía. Y una manera de desglosarlo, este balance de energía cero neto, pues es mirar a este concepto que mencionábamos de energía entregada, donde hablamos no únicamente el consumo energético de la red o la generación de energía renovable in situ, sino las diferentes fuentes que generan un consumo energético, como puede ser combustión, suministro de agua, vapor de distrito, etc. Y a esto restar la energía no renovable desplazada. Y qué interesante, porque no es únicamente el concepto de la energía generada in situ, sino también fuera de ella y la energía añadida. Entonces, este concepto es mucho más amplio, mucho más holístico y responde mejor a esta intención de una verdadera neutralidad en emisiones equivalentes. Y para eso hablamos también de la jerarquía de las energías renovables. ¿Cómo tenemos que priorizar la energía in situ? Y ahora lo vamos a escuchar precisamente en los casos de éxito. Primero la generación in situ, después la generación local, puede ser energía eólica o solar a nivel comunitario o proyectos de PPA o certificados de energía renovable, pero en esa prioridad y no al revés. ¿Por qué? Porque entendemos que la fuente y el sitio de la energía son fundamentales. ¿De dónde proviene esa energía y hasta dónde debe de trasladarse para tener este propósito? Y entonces es así como precisamente en el algoritmo de cálculo de la plataforma ARC, que es la base para la medición del LEED Zero, podemos identificar exactamente cuál es el tipo de energía y sus fuentes para que nuestro cálculo de emisiones sea mucho más preciso. Entonces, esos factores de conversión ya están incorporados en la plataforma ARC. Esto fue energía. Análogamente, cero agua. Bueno, pues aquí el balance de agua está definido por el total de agua consumida menos el total de agua alternativa utilizada más el agua de vuelta a la fuente original. Bien, pues esta ecuación la podemos entender de esta manera. El agua potable consumida es el consumo actual, pero debemos de disponer fuentes alternativas, como pueden ser tratamiento de aguas residuales, aguas grises, captación de agua fluvial y el agua tratada que pueda ser de vuelta a la fuente, de tal manera que obtengamos un balance de nuevo igual o mayor a cero. Es un edificio que puede demostrar autonomía en su consumo de agua potable. Ese es el objetivo de cero agua, LEED cero agua. Siempre enfocando calidad, cantidad y la localía, la cercanía del recurso. Pasamos al tercer elemento. El tercer concepto de LEED Zero en lo que refiere a residuos. Y este se logra a través de una certificación, la certificación Thorough Resource Use and Efficiency, que es una certificación propia que habla de cero desperdicios. Cuando logras esa certificación a nivel platino, automáticamente puedes acceder al reconocimiento de LEED Zero Residuos, LEED Zero Waste. Y bueno, mencionar aquí, de entrada, la política y la intención es cero desperdicios y lograr al menos evitar el 90% de que los desperdicios o los residuos vayan a los rellenos sanitarios. Y naturalmente esto apoyado por estrategias de reducción de consumo, de reciclaje y de reuso. Y pasamos al elemento que engloba el concepto de LEED Zero en el carbono. Y de manera análoga, lo que buscamos es que las emisiones de dióxido de carbono equivalente como principal gas de efecto invernadero, sea menor o igual a cero. Entonces, lo que buscamos es este balance donde el total del carbono emitido menos el carbono evitado sea igual o menor a cero. Bueno, esto es, de nuevo, ojo, en la etapa operativa. Y nos vamos a enfocar particularmente en dos tipos de emisiones. El consumo propio de la energía en los edificios y el derivado del transporte de los ocupantes. Existen otro tipo de energía o las emisiones, perdón, derivadas de los materiales incorporados en la construcción, de residuos o del manejo de agua. Por ahora es el enfoque en los dos elementos claves de energía y transporte. Y a esto restar la generación de energía renovable in situ o la adquisición de energías renovables fuera del mismo. Es así como hacemos el balance neto y absoluto de carbono emitido contra carbono evitado. Los conceptos clave, y lo repaso rápidamente, es el coeficiente de la composición de la red energética. De nuevo, esto está incorporado en los algoritmos de cálculo y estamos hablando lo que conocemos como la matriz energética o las emisiones de carbono y como una red que produce energía quizá a través de fuentes no renovables, naturalmente tiene un coeficiente de multiplicación de emisiones mucho mayor que uno basado en energías limpias. Otro concepto importante son las emisiones de carbono, basados en los tipos de transporte, donde vemos naturalmente el desplazamiento en bicicleta o andando, es naturalmente lo más eficiente, lo que no genera emisiones, y en el otro extremo tenemos la conducción unipersonal de un automóvil, ¿no? O el uso de transporte público, y así es como calculamos las libras o kilogramos de CO2 por kilómetro o por milla recorrido. Y para esto, el sistema de certificación LEED lo que nos pide es al menos una encuesta anual de transporte entre los usuarios del edificio para, basado en los modos de transporte y la distancia recorrida, calcular las emisiones correspondientes. Una frase muy poderosa, muy simple, de un socio de una empresa consultora que nos dice: la belleza del LEED Zero es así de simple. Simple, genera más de lo que usas, ¿no? Entonces, tener esa conciencia de la responsabilidad de que si vas a consumir, tú tienes que generar un tanto y más. Rápidamente, esfuerzos, proyectos en México. Tuvimos el gusto de generar un consorcio empresarial denominado Edificios Cero Energía, con estas organizaciones, muchos de talla internacional, que asociadas a un desarrollador capital natural, se concibió desde su etapa inicial un proyecto cero energía en su etapa de diseño, con la intención de ser icónico, de mostrar un caso de negocio para los proyectos cero energía, como un activo inmobiliario, promoción del proyecto e innovador. Este es el proyecto, se llama Home Wellness, desarrollado por Capital Natural en San Pedro Garza García, Nuevo León, y sus objetivos de diseño fue la triple corona: edificios cero energía, LEED Zero, LEED Platino y certificado WELL. En la etapa de diseño así fue conceptualizado. Ahora en una condición operativa y con exigencias de mercado diferentes, ha tomado algún derrotero diferente, pero lo importante es que todo el ejercicio de diseño fue conceptualizado para estos tres objetivos. Y otros ejemplos para tomar referencia que cualquier tipología puede acceder. ¿Qué mejor que una escuela? Una escuela donde el mensaje lo viven y lo comunican día a día con los alumnos, con los estudiantes. Un proyecto LEED Zero que tiene esta condición de alto desempeño energético y el suministro de la energía residual a través de fuentes renovables in situ. Un proyecto de una empresa consultora en Little Rock, Arkansas, que algún día conoceré, que nos habla igualmente, esto fue muy interesante, pues un proceso de una renovación, y esto nos da también la certidumbre que un proceso de remozamiento o de actualización de un proyecto existente puede aspirar a la certificación Net Zero tomando las decisiones en la condición adecuada. Y bueno, de esto nos hablará naturalmente mi gran amigo Guido en un momento más, del proyecto emblemático a nivel global, que todos estamos muy orgullosos y felicitamos a Guido Pertinelli y su equipo. Lo veremos en detalle. Otro proyecto LEED Zero Waste en Chicago, Illinois, de una ONG, imagínense, con esta capacidad. Y cerramos con esto. El proceso de certificación, hay que conocer las guías del programa. Podemos registrarnos directamente en este correo, leedzero@gbci.org. Se prepara y envía la documentación a GBCI para obtener la certificación y, naturalmente, promover y comunicar el éxito. Aquí están las referencias del programa de LEED Zero en esta página web y les agradezco muchísimo esta oportunidad de haberles compartido esta gran buena nueva. Gracias.
Gracias. Thank you so much, Cesar Ulysses, for that great presentation. Hello, everyone. I'm Nicolette Bonnet. I'm the Director for Global Market Development for Latin America. We're going to switch to English at this point in the conversation because this is truly, as I said in the chat, an all America's call, with Guido having come from studying in Canada. I'm in the US. Alejandra, Rebecca, Cesar Ulysses, and mucho más are in Mexico. And then Guido today lives in Curitiba, Brazil. So from the very north to the very south, we're all here. And it's my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker to you, Mr. Guido Pertinelli. He's the director and founder of Pertinelli, Inc., which is an engineering firm and the leading sustainability consulting firm in Brazil. He served as a sustainability consultant, advisor, and project leader on more than 80 projects in Brazil, which includes, by our last count, over half of the LEED Platinum projects in that country, which is incredible. He's a pioneer in sustainable design, construction, and operations in Brazil. He was the co-founder of GBC Brazil, the National Green Building Council and sister council to SUME and USGBC. And prior to starting Pertinelli Inc., he was the director with the World Green Building Council, where he helped to expand the network of green building councils across North and South America, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. In 2018, in recognition of his extraordinary contributions to global sustainability and LEED, USGBC recognized Guido as a LEED Fellow. And you'd never believe it by looking at his CV, but in 2018, he was the youngest person ever to be named LEED Fellow, which was awesome. In 2019, he led the certification process for the world's third highest scoring LEED project with 104 points, and the world's very first LEED Zero Energy certified building. Since then, he's gone on to certify Latin America's first LEED Zero Water, LEED Zero Carbon, and Brazil's first LEED Zero Waste projects. I'm so excited to have Guido here to share his project stories with you today, and I hope you'll start sending in your questions now in English and Spanish. Guido and Cesar Ulysses have a wealth of information to share with you about data, technical challenges, what's happening with the market. So really looking forward to a great conversation. So with that, Guido, I'll pass it over to you. I think, do you have the ball to start presenting? Oh, you may be on mute.
Thanks, Nicolette. I got a warning here from GoToMeeting. I'm going to try to share my screen. Hopefully it works. Okay, hold on.
Next time, we're all going to do this live in Mexico City for a conference.
Sure. One second here. I'm going to have to allow GoToMeeting. There we go. Let's see if this works. I'm going to have to restart GoToMeeting. So I'm going to have to be back in 30 seconds.
No problem. So maybe we'll just move ahead, maybe with some questions for you, Cesar Ulysses. You know, Mexico has been the leader in so many areas when it comes to LEED. LEED had the first LEED project, the first LEED credential. It hasn't been the first to have a LEED Zero project because there's a lot of challenges and maybe not a lot of knowledge in the market. And I know the project you're working on is a big one and incredibly ambitious, but what do you see as some of the challenges that we need to overcome in Mexico?
Well, first of all, a deeper awareness and the knowledge and the science behind these concepts. I think USGBC and LEED has crafted beautifully how to tackle the real issue of carbon management and carbon reduction through this program. And as I was explaining earlier in my presentation of LEED Zero, it's about the sources. You want to see where the energy really comes from, where the emissions really go to. And once you get that understanding in place, and then you can react by deploying in your project, whether it's a new one existing or an existing building, then you can address all these challenges in the most efficient manner. And I think that that's a great thing, just to get the concepts clear, and then your resolutions will be much more efficient. But we have Guido back, so thank you.
I apologize, but it seems to always happen at the worst of times. So hold on one second here. There we go. Is it working?
It's working.
So I thought this presentation was about an hour later. Let me ask something. Can you see my screen, or do I need to go to full screen?
We can see your screen. It's a little blurry. It maybe be better if you could go to full screen, but
Right.
But if you can, I think we'll be fine.
I didn't get a chance to edit, so I have lots of slides. We'll go through them quickly.
Right.
We'll see how far we get. So
We wanted this to be live, and we're here to sort of hear from you and ask great questions. So I think everything that you can share with us will help stimulate the conversation.
So thank you very much for the invitation. I apologize. I should be making this presentation in Spanish, but I can guarantee you thank me later for having done it in English. But sooner or later, I will learn enough Spanish to be able to make this presentation without you suffering too much. It's a real pleasure to be able to share this. We've been working to help clients improve building performance now for quite a while, and as engineers, it always felt to us that while working on new construction projects, LEED is a great conversation starter. It's a way of getting clients signed up for talking about building performance, but it always felt like there was something missing. And what we wanted was to have measured data that showed that what we promised in the design and construction phases actually happened later on, that what we were selling clients was real and not just concepts. And so we started working with this idea of measuring performance, and Zero was a way of engaging clients. Zero is easy to explain, it's easy to understand. Most people don't know what LEED is, but they pretty much understand what an energy self-sufficient building is. 0 is absolute. It's not about a percentage reduction. And we started understanding that clients responded really well to this concept, and clients were buying performance. So we were able to engage clients in the discussion around performance. And now, we had the opportunity to measure and evaluate building operations and performance and engage clients in a meaningful way. So I like to say that, it's easier to convince a client to do a LEED Platinum project than a LEED certified project, because in the end, every young athlete dreams of going to the Olympics to win gold, right? You never remember who got second place. You always remember who won. And now with Zero, we find that, it's the same. It's just now, instead of talking, us from the construction industry to the construction industry, Zero means we have a much more broader audience, right? Because it's a simpler concept, and people actually, want to reach higher, then Zero is a natural next step. But what changes, and I think that's really important, is that while certifications are a promise, measured performance means delivering on that promise, right? It changes the dynamics. When I'm talking about Zero to a client, well, he knows now that it's easy to verify, right? If either Zero or it ain't Zero, either you generated more energy than you used, or you've gone over budget. You haven't reached your goal. And that security, that feeling that you are buying something and you are sure to know if it has been delivered, I think expands the group of people that are attracted to the concept of green buildings. And when I talk about, measured performance, we were talking about this way before LEED Zero even existed. I'm going to show you the example of my office. We are responsible today for 10 LEED Zero certifications, 6 buildings in all. LEED Zero energy, LEED Zero water, waste, and carbon. But the world's first LEED Zero energy and the world's first LEED Zero water projects, they were only first because they were already operating at net zero before LEED came about and said, listen, we're creating a new category, and that was for us important to look at certification as a consequence, right? In the end, the value is in how do I build a better building for what it costs to build a conventional building, right? Green building should be about doing more with less, and the natural outcome is zero, right? How much can I reduce my energy use? How much can I reduce my water consumption? How much can I reduce my building's emission? How much can I reduce the amount of waste I'm generating and sending to the landfill? Zero is just taking the green builder's mission to its natural kind of conclusion. And the fact that we're now measuring, it means that we have the arguments, right? So it's really difficult to argue with data, right? People might be suspicious, who are these green builders who are telling me that, they can do these kinds of magic tricks? Well, now, don't take my word for it. I think that measuring component, it's a key part of it. So talking about our experience, it all started with our office. Our office building is both a lab and a showroom for these technologies. It didn't start out that way. I'm going to show you the world's first LEED Zero water project. All of this happened because one of our clients liked the idea of being being net zero water, and we figured, before we apply this to a 14,000 square meter office building, we have to build a prototype to make sure it works. And that's how our office got started. We rented an existing warehouse. It had a big backyard. This picture is taken on that backyard. And the backyard became our constructed wetland, where we treat all of our wastewater. The office is now certified LEED Platinum via ARC, but also LEED Zero Energy, LEED Zero Carbon, and LEED Zero Waste. It's Latin America's first LEED Zero Waste project. It's also certified GBC Brazil Zero Energy. So overall, we're talking about 6 certifications in all, and hopefully we'll be LEED Zero Water as soon as the pandemic is over. For us, it's important because in the end, you know, we work with clients that are innovative, who are early adopters, and to attract the kind of talent that we need, the engineers that are willing to put the extra effort and the extra hour to keep them motivated, you know, we need to provide them with challenges and the means to achieve those challenges, right? So we like to say that we are creative and audacious engineers, and that's the point, right? It's to do something better, to do it differently, to you know, tunnel through the cost barrier, to show that it's possible and economically viable. And that's why LEED Zero has taken off for us, because all of those things kind of have come together, right? So if you can build a building that is energy and water self-sufficient, if being zero waste doesn't cost a penny more, then there's no reason why you should build or operate buildings any other way. It's a small office building, and like I said, it's a bit of a lab, but in the end, what matters most for us is, you know, it's a place where people want to work, right? It's a place that inspires, that helps us attract and retain really talented and motivated people. You know, it's a place where, you know, we have our crazy ideas and are able to explore it. So it all started with LEED Zero Energy, and things have taken off from there. I think important lessons that I now share with my clients constantly. You know, we were the cover of USGBC magazine. Being an innovator, being a pioneer will always pay dividends, right? You can't have too many pioneers. You can't have more than one first. So clients who see value in innovation, who see value in establishing a position of leadership, that's, you know, generally where we start. I like to say that we work with clients that are generally frustrated, that know that it can be done better. Generally speaking, when we show our results to them, the answer is, I knew it. I just didn't know how to do it, but I knew I could get there. In 2019, you know, two green builds ago, we were, you know, lucky to be awarded the USGBC Leadership Award for this pioneering work with LEED Zero Energy. LEED Zero Energy is 80% of the way towards LEED Zero Carbon. If you're going to do zero energy, you're going to do zero carbon. We have a pretty young team. Most people take you know, bikes to work. Electric bikes have become really popular in Brazil. It's an existing building, so we had to be creative about being LEED Zero Water. We're actually inspired by the Living Building Challenge, so we treat 100% of our wastewater in-house with no chemicals. We use a constructed wetland, but anybody here who's worked, you know, with systems know that, you know, if I reduce the amount of heat my building gains during the summer, I reduce the size of my HVAC system. If I reduce the amount of wastewater I generate, then, you know, I have a smaller treatment plant. It was really expensive to do all new plumbing in the building. So an environmental engineer called John came up with this contraption. I know there are a few of them in the market. This one was custom designed for us. It's a Korean sink placed on top of the toilet. So when you flush the toilet, the water, before going straight into the reservoir, is used to wash your hands, right? So it's water reuse without all the plumbing, and all the treatment is done in our backyard. So the plants that you see over here, they do most of the treatment process. Then first they goes into these two white chambers, and then they go to to the constructed wetland, then they go through a ultrafiltration and disinfection, and it goes back to flushing the toilets. LEED Zero waste, it's probably something that I knew very little of when we were getting started. I didn't realize when we got our first report, 60% of all the waste we generated was garden waste, right? You have a big garden, you're feeding that garden every day. There was a lot of garden waste. And so doing the energy audit and understanding how we were generating waste, you know, the whole, you learn this in school, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle, nothing like a goal to, you know, bring focus to it, right? We you know, 60% of our waste was easily compostable, right? You don't realize that, you know, not until you measure. That's why measuring is so important. And so being LEED Zero Waste, after being True Zero Waste certified, for us, I feel that zero waste has a much bigger potential even than net zero energy. There's no reason why anyone couldn't be net zero waste. I know there are a bunch of barriers, but I tell you, you know, we've been working with Coca-Cola, we've been working with the Adventist School Board, with a little bit of creativity and a commitment. This is easily achievable, right? So you've got, you know, your recycling, your composting. We hire out, so instead of leaving it to the city to pick up our garbage, it's a cheap contract. There's a startup in the city that collects all of our compostable waste. It costs us 50 reais, which is less than $10 a month, to have it composted and returned to us as fertilizer. And we retrofitted our garden. It was beautiful with lots of flowers. There's still flowers, but now we have two beautiful garden beds. I made pesto yesterday from basil that grew in the garden, and everybody really enjoys it, and it's fun to see people using it. You know, got rid of mugs. It was a cool way for us to get everybody thinking about reducing, reusing, recycling. Everybody uses reusable cups, and it's become kind of a trademark. People got excited, so you know, when you travel, you take them with you. It has the company's color. It's become a source of pride, something that I didn't expect it, right? It's just a cup. And it's become kind of a token. Signage and everything else, you know. LEED Zero Water, this is Aero Business. It's a 14,000 square meter office building. It's what inspired us. We did a Coca-Cola plant that reused rainwater for making Coca-Cola because it was cheaper than treating, you know, the city water to make Coca-Cola. And it inspired us to think, you know, how can we make an office building of this scale net zero? And the treatment system, it's on the roof, right? So you can see a fairly well-grown green roof. That green roof is a constructed wetland. You're talking about 500 square meters of constructed wetland in the roof. In the basement, you have about 8 cubic meters of worms, Californian worms, that do the primary processing of the waste. It's then pumped to the roof, it goes through the wetland, and then goes into a polishing station, a final treatment, right? Again, this building was net zero water before LEED existed. So when we decided to certify LEED Zero Water, we already had all the meters in the building because we wanted to know if it was working or not. Client paid for the meters, but he didn't know that we applied for LEED Zero. He's not from the construction industry. He's an accountant. He's very proud of his building. When we showed him the LEED certificate for LEED Zero Water, he actually cried of happiness, of course. But it was a really special moment. That's, you know, an image of the roof. This is a schematic kind of illustration. So there's a reservoir beneath the green roof. It's like an elevated floor. About 20 centimeters of water is over there, and the plants do all the treatment. It was certified in 2019. Coke, quickly, we started out with Coke. This is the plant that treats rainwater from its roof to make Coca-Cola. We knew when we were getting started that if we just delivered a LEED certified plant, we'd probably stop over there. We focused on energy efficiency for a reason, because we knew that, you know, if we built the most efficient LEED plant in Brazil, the next time they went to build another LEED plant, we'd get a call, and that's what happened. So this is Maringá. It's 22% more efficient than their newest plant. This is Rio. Rio is important because we took that 22% energy efficiency and expanded it to 50% energy efficiency. So Rio consumes 50% less energy, Maringá 22. When it came to Rio at 0 extra construction costs. So we're talking a building that's LEED Platinum, 50% less energy, 80% less water, didn't cost a dime extra to build. When it came to Uberlândia, which is in state of Minas Gerais in Brazil, well, you know, how do you best that, right? And so the big, hairy, audacious goal: can we build a factory distribution center that's LEED 0? The meeting I had just before this presentation was with Coca-Cola from Uberlândia, because we're now adding another 3 buildings to the plant, and they're all will be LEED Platinum, LEED 0 energy, LEED 0 water, LEED 0 waste, LEED 0 carbon. They're already LEED 0 energy and LEED 0 carbon, and that basically the rationale here is every one of these columns in this graph is a Coca-Cola plant in Brazil. Okay, that dotted line, the dotted line that you see over there, that's Maringá. That's the minus 22%. Okay, so every existing Coca-Cola plant in Brazil is using more energy than, you know, the most recent, what was at the time the most recent energy efficient plant in the country. That's all waste. I mean, you've got plants that are using 27 kilowatt hour per cubic meter, and you have plants that are using 120. You're basically talking 1 to 4. You know, there are plants that use 4 times as much energy as the most efficient plants to make the same Coke can of Coke. And so there's a huge opportunity here, right? A Coca-Cola plant uses a lot of energy. It's one of the primary costs of operating one of these plants. And the fact that, you know, we understood that, it's what allowed us to work with Uberlândia to make them 0. It's a 22,000 square meter warehouse, the first phase. The second phase, you've got 3 other buildings. First phase is the warehouse and an administrative building with change rooms and primary care facilities and so on. The second, there's a third phase, which is the Coca-Cola factory in itself. Just benchmarking, these are all our projects. We've been around for 12 years. We started with Maringá at 7.5 watts per square meter in terms of lighting power density. Uberlândia came 8 years later, and it's 2.1 watts per square meter. And why is that important? Is before I decide to buy photovoltaic panels, I'm first reducing energy use as much as I can. So the column on the left is our current energy use. If I can reduce energy use through energy efficiency, then I don't have to, you know, spend as much on renewable energy generation. And when we approached the client, we said, listen, and the best part is, you know, you will know it's about measured performance. And so the Coca-Cola plant's been operational now for 3 or 4 years. It uses 71% less energy than the existing building stock. And the important thing about reducing energy in 71% is that you only have to buy 29% of the photovoltaic panels you would need to buy otherwise. And this is important because our perception is, you know, net zero is just too far away. You know, this is a diagram of the roof. You know, I'm going to have to cover my roof in PV panels in order to have a net zero energy building. And if you work through energy efficiency, the reality is much easier and closer to being achieved than, you know, we generally give credit for. It's about integrating systems. It's a building that's naturally daylit. It's a building that's naturally ventilated. But all of this comes together in order to turn this a reality. The building was certified LEED Zero Energy in February and carbon in December 2020, which means that we have to resubmit for recertification, which we haven't yet. We're late, but it's also certified GBC Zero Energy. It's a really cool project. We're probably going to be working on this for another 3 or 4 years. But just to wrap it up, the Latin America's first zero carbon project is De Paolo in Panasolos. Is a lawyer, friend, and client of ours. They had an existing office. These guys are the coolest guys ever. And with ARC and with renewable energy generation, they achieved all 3 certifications in the same day: LEED Platinum, LEED Zero Energy, LEED Zero Carbon. It's a small office, so it doesn't have to be complicated. But what I really like about the story is how excited these guys are. They're not from the construction industry. No architects, no engineers, no construction company involved. To get a client this excited about building performance, about something that's not related to his field, it's priceless, right? They become our best marketing tool. I love these pictures of them, relishing and cherishing the fact that they have an innovative, sustainable building from where to work from every day. And I think I'm going to wrap it up over here. Basically, we've got projects on. Probably we've got about 24 LEED projects in the works. We'll probably have a few more certified this year. And the challenge now is bringing this to scale, right? Energy is something that you need to focus on the economics. You need to find a way to make ends meet, but there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do this. In Brazil, we have the regulatory environment. Even though Brazil is a fairly closed economy, if you work to do what green builders have been doing for a while, look for those trade-offs, reduce first costs, reduce energy use, so that initial investment in generation, it's I like to say the light bulbs and the AC helps pay for the photovoltaics on the roof. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do it. It takes a bit of engineering, and it takes making the business case, but energy is achievable, and most people see the value in doing energy. Carbon comes as a consequence. Don't worry about carbon. Get energy in the bag, and then the conversation will naturally go towards carbon. Waste is something that's achievable regardless if you achieve energy or not, right? It takes very little capital investment, right? So there isn't upfront costs. But I also like to say that if you are on the portfolio, it's a fantastic opportunity, because if you learn how to do once, you figure out how to do for all of your properties. It's process and it's management, and it's not difficult. You'll be surprised with how many suppliers already exist. I know I'm talking about Brazil, but I've been shocked. I didn't realize that there were so many people and companies and startup dealing with something. What's the return on investment on teaching your kids not to throw garbage on the street, right? You can't calculate that. And I think most people understand and respond to waste in a really fundamental way. Managing your waste is about being a good citizen. It's about being, a good person. And finally, water. Water is a challenge. I think water is the greatest challenge. We get lucky, it rains 200 days out of the year where we are. But it's not an insurmountable challenge. The fact that the world's first LEED Zero Water building, it's a commercial office building. It's a spec commercial office building. I mean, if you can do it, you can do it anywhere, right? I think when we approached a client of ours, the Adventist School Board, they're doing 60 net zero energy schools for their headquarters we show them LEED Zero. I said, listen, you can be either LEED Zero energy or LEED Zero carbon or LEED Zero waste or LEED Zero water. His answer was, I'd like to be LEED Zero everything. And I loved it. I trademarked. No, I didn't trademark, but I should trademark. LEED Zero everything. It's fantastic. I mean, in the end, it's, you know, a natural human condition to want to do better, right? To want to improve our, you know, quality of life and to reach higher. And you're not going to be able to convince everybody at first, but seek out those early adopters and innovators. And by doing it with them and having the data, you know, at least what we're experiencing right now, it's not, you know, how I do one, it's how, you know, if it makes sense for one, how do I scale this up to all of my other buildings, which is something that we never expected we'd be discussing, you know, now. But the simplicity, you know, the ease of communication and having the data to back it up. I mean, it's easier to do green buildings now than it was 10 years ago trying to sell LEED. You know, that's what I feel. And that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Guido. And you know, I think a lot of the people that maybe are on the call right now are people that are involved in trying to talk to owners and building operators about LEED or about the prospect of zero. So I think, you know, we're going to see some questions coming in from your fellow consultants, sort of saying, you know, what is part of the pitch? And I really liked how you sort of said that, like, once you show people that zero is possible, that with some creativity you can overcome those barriers, they want to go for it. I mean, LEED Zero everything. That sounds great. We'll beat you to the punch on the copyright issue there. So Rebecca and I would love to ask you a couple of questions just to keep the conversation sort of going, and we're going to bring Ulysses back in as well. And then if there's questions from the audience, please send them in the chat in English or Spanish. Somos bilingües. We can do it all. You know, the most obvious question that it probably is on everybody's mind, Guido, is which one was the hardest? And as you said, that might be a difficult question because doing LEED Zero water for Ulysses in Monterrey is a totally different prospect than doing it in Curitiba. So, but in your experience, did it depend on the building, or you know, zero water, zero waste, zero energy, or zero carbon? Which was the hardest?
So Nicolette, before I answer, I got a prompt here saying you've been made the presenter, and I can't see the screen. So if somebody can remove me as a presenter, probably would.
You're good. We've got our main slide up with all of our faces on as the panel, so I think we're good.
Okay. The thing is,
yeah, well, thank you.
I'm blocked out. I don't know what happened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but responding to your question, so zero was a challenge. Net zero energy was a challenge at first because there was a huge question about first initial costs, right? When we started figuring it out, the financial aspects, we're talking about 3% to 6% extra construction cost for LEED Zero energy now for an office building, right? That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. And if you take a look, like it's the case of Coca-Cola or most owner-occupiers, that generally means a simple payback period of 2 to 3 years at most. And the reasoning is pretty simple, right? If you halve your energy use, you halve your payback period, because now you're only buying half of the panels that you needed before. So when I say that your lighting and your HVAC is helping you pay for the panels, they are. And you know, we started understanding that part of the barrier wasn't going to be solved through engineering. So helping clients purchase these systems cheaper was important. So energy is, for us, proved to be, you know, easier because it was easier to start the conversation. It was harder to figure out how to do it, But once we figure out how to do it, it became our calling card, right? I mean, you talk about reducing energy use, you're talking about reducing operating expenses. Everybody wants to talk to you if you're talking about reducing operating expenses. Waste for us came later, but I think we'll have waste. I believe is the most achievable without much analysis. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yep, we hear you. Yep.
Okay. And water is the one that poses the greatest technical challenge. Not only availability of alternative water sources, but when we talk about health and safety, there's a lot of prejudice around all of this, and it does require a lot of technical innovation. I mean, if you think about all four, counting carbon, if you're talking about existing buildings, water will definitely be the hardest. If you're talking about new construction, I wouldn't ignore water, but it's definitely the hardest one to make ends meet.
Great, thank you. Rebecca, did you have a question you wanted to ask that came in through the audience?
Thank you. Yes, please. So is LEED Zero possible for industrial buildings? This is something that came from one of our clients yesterday. Thank you.
Should I answer that?
Yes, please.
Please go ahead.
And we traditionally have worked with lots of industrial clients in the past. So currently we're doing a Coca-Cola, a chemical processing plant. They do green chemicals, a olive oil factory and bottling plant, and it's a factory, you know, where people make clothes. I don't know what the name it is in English. And to our surprise, these are all going LEED Zero. Now, generally, initially interested in LEED Zero energy, and as time progresses, also interested in LEED Zero water. With, at least in Brazil, LEED Zero energy and water seem to be what clients are most attracted to right away. But now we're working on theme parks, which caught us by surprise. We're working on a children's amusement park to be LEED Zero energy and LEED Zero water. We're talking about a hospital. I didn't show you guys. I never thought we'd be able to do a hospital, but it's a hospital that will be LEED certified, well certified, and LEED Zero energy and carbon. It's about 5,000 square meters. It's a children's pediatric, a cancer hospital, and it's about 1 megawatt, so about 6,000 square meters of photovoltaic panels to turn the hospital net zero. Yeah, so, you know, Norway's embassy in Brazil is net zero as a result of the work I've shown earlier today. I think pretty much every construction type we've managed to, you know, from bank branches to small office buildings, to large office buildings, to factories, to schools. We're already working on it, and if they're not certified yet, they should be in the next 12 to 18 months.
Wow, that's amazing. So all project types, which are great examples, because I think that, you know, when we're talking about how do we get the Mexican market to really get on board with zero and start doing it, it's great to have examples of places where it is happening, that don't just come from, you know, places that are assumed to be super green like California. I love that the example from the US is from Arkansas, which is maybe not always thought of as the state for green building. So I've got a question to bring it back to you, Cesar Ulysses. You know, you mentioned earlier when we were talking about sort of what are some of the barriers in Mexico, and you said really client education and getting building owners to understand what we're talking about, just because I think everybody's sort of bombarded these days with different ideas about what zero means and what it doesn't mean and where they're trying to go, and you know, it can feel overwhelming. So, you know, I think what are some of the tactics and strategies that you would recommend to everybody about giving a really clear message about what zero means and what it can accomplish, so that people don't just start to see, you know, adding 1 million solar panels, that they start to think about energy efficiency or finding that balance.
Yeah, absolutely, Nikki. I think it's I'm going to resonate with Guido. I'm just in accordance with these principles of keeping it simple and clear from the beginning. As you say, the maze can be somewhat difficult to follow if we get unnecessarily complicated. So when we set the goals, and as we just mentioned, as Guido has shown us, the higher the stakes, the better the results. If you're going to go for the net zero or even positive, just set your goals clear from day one. Of course, we work and rely very clearly on data. I think that's a very important point we also made, that numbers are absolute and clear. So when we show and present the clients, and then I can say that we should look for the early adopters. They will take it. We need to break this market stagnation in a way. If there's no movement, you want to keep some momentum. You want to create some inertia. And of course, what we've learned, the lesson in many years, and I remember Guido and I being part of the World Green Building Council in our prime years, or at least mine, where we were sending the very basic message about what's the business case for green building. And now we're showing that there's a business case for zero or positive buildings. So we've come a long way, and we know the whereabouts of returns. We have a lot of positive pressure from ESG. Many of the developers, I would dare to say worldwide, they are very keen now in environmental, social, and governance practices. They know that they need to protect their assets for the future, and that's their business. So, say the hard part of climate change is that is shaking the heads of all the asset owners, the money lenders, and now they are creating better conditions for this to happen. Before, it was very difficult to make the business case because we couldn't monetize properly tangible and intangible benefits. Now that we put value not only on resource savings but also into quality of life, it's a game changer. So I think the basis for development and moving forward towards zero carbon built environment is not going to be easy, but it's going to have much more traction than in previous years.
Great, awesome. And then I think Rebecca's got one more question. We do need to try to wrap it up, but the recording will be available on YouTube very soon through SUME's YouTube site. So Rebecca, I give the last question to you.
Sure. There's two questions from the audience. One, how about residential buildings? Do you see opportunities with LEED Zero for residential buildings? So if you want to start answering, Cesar, that would be wonderful.
Well, there's with the back. Okay,
Yes,
but briefly, of course, there's opportunities, and we're seeing here, even in Mexico, the first steps towards zero energy housing, even low-income housing. And we've been pioneering internationally low-income housing in terms of sustainability. So there are some projects ongoing, and this could be replicable, of course, to other scales, other types of housing projects. So that it's a total yes, of course. Yeah.
Perfect. Would you like to add something, Guido, regarding LEED Zero for residential buildings?
Yeah, I would from a market perspective, we decided to start with owner occupiers, and I think the commercial real estate sector doesn't have an incentive aside from those who are already pioneering LEED, 10, 15 years ago. And so we're working with a couple of multi-unit residential developers, mid to high-rise residential buildings, but it's really difficult to find a economic model that makes sense. And I think we are in the early stages of growing awareness. So we have focused our efforts on owner occupiers. Somebody owns and operates the school, the factory, the hospital, the hotel. And I think eventually it will percolate to other segments. I think there's a high barrier to entry when we talk about the residential market. Now, when we talk about affordable housing and programs that are incentivized by local governments, it makes total sense, and we're seeing that happen in Brazil. But for in the private sector, I would say, unless really special conditions kind of align themselves, we're seeing that pretty much every one of our clients operate in the residential market are doing some level of, renewable energy generation. I think getting to zero, it's difficult for at least for multi-unit residential buildings. It has been difficult so far to make it work. Oh, I've lost audio.
No, I think Rebecca may just have been on mute. Rebecca, are you there?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I have one more question. So this is also from another client. How difficult is it to go from version 4.1 from a version 4.1 building to LEED Zero?
I think the first thing that we've learned, so the discussion with Coca-Cola earlier today is that we have a separate site in a different city, and we won't be able to go for LEED Platinum on that site because of location issues. And I was saying, listen, the fact that we're only reaching LEED Gold doesn't mean that we can't be LEED Zero. So don't think of LEED versions as, don't think of LEED Zero as what comes after Platinum, especially because, you can go for water, energy, waste separately. So I don't think versions of LEED necessarily have an impact on the achievability of LEED Zero. Now, if you start out with a LEED Platinum building that's extremely efficient, that uses less energy and less water, it means that, the less energy you need, the less investment will be required. So there is a synergy between the two, but they're not necessarily linked to one another. It's no coincidence that so far our 6 LEED Zero buildings, the 10 certifications, they're all LEED Platinum buildings. But we're going to start to see a couple of LEED Silver and LEED Gold projects that were coming to completion, and LEED Zero came around and like, listen, guys, we have an opportunity here to do an upgrade. But the building is already, treating wastewater, doing, non-potable water reuse. Let's go for LEED Zero, and there's no reason why not to.
Okay, great. Well, Nikki, yeah, go ahead, please. I was going to ask you if you have something else.
No, I don't. I mean, I see one more question has come in. It's a pretty technical one from Alejandro. We did say that we were going to stop the questions in respect for everybody's time, but maybe we'll just ask Guido one more question, and then we really are going to wrap up. So Alex from Monterrey says, in your Zero projects, did you use a passive HVAC system, or UFAD. I don't actually know what that is because I'm not technical. If the answer is yes, what do you recommend?
You caught me on the UFAD as well.
Okay.
Basically, it doesn't really matter. But you know, if you take a look at the school, which is basically was my last slide, it's not an air-conditioned school.
Mm-hmm.
All of the schools for the Adventist School Board are air-conditioned. It changes, you know, your energy use intensity. I think you're looking at energy use intensity. It's probably a better way of looking at, you know, the technical feasibility of net zero buildings, regardless of how you get there. Now, if you want to build a ultra low energy building, the way I look at it is, you know, the more comfortable building you build, the less people rely on AC. Brazil, like Mexico, it's a hot tropical climate. So, you know, what you want to do is reduce the necessity for mechanical systems as much as you can. There are going to be those days where, you know, you might rely on it in order to provide thermal comfort. If you can design a building depending on the building typology where you don't need mechanical systems, great. But, you know, anything you can do to improve building performance is, you know, energy that you're not using, and helping you get closer to your net zero targets. I say this because, you know, people comfort and well-being should always come first, right? I mean, that's you know, Nicolette knows one of our clients who build an excellent, really comfortable building. LEED is a natural consequence, and that's how we see it, right? True comfort is being able to open the window instead of turning on the AC. At least in Brazil, it is. If you ask, you know, any random person in the street, would you rather, you know, have the AC on or off? He's going to say, listen, I only turn on the AC because, you know, I don't feel comfortable. And so by no means these LEED Zero projects are, you know, all passively designed, but the closer you get to eliminating the need for mechanical systems, the closer you get to achieving LEED Zero economically.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think with that, we should wrap it up. Thank you very much, Guido, for being here today. Thank you very much, Cesar, Ulysses, Rebecca, and Ale. Thank you for putting all of this together and making this possible. We are giving continuing education units for anyone who needs it. The number is right there on the slide. So thank you all, and thank you for staying late with so many great questions. It was great to have you here. And please share the recording with your friends if you've got other people who are interested in learning more about LEED Zero. Muchísimas gracias, obrigada, and we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Take care, bye-bye.
See you, bye. Thank you very much.